But this is a video that really has just popped into my head to do. Funny enough, while watching a Welshie retrospective, while having a cup of tea, before I play Dragon Age. And it's on a subject that a lot of G1ers and a lot of the fan base seem to hate, who I actually quite like. And that's Rodimus Prime. And I'm not talking comics, I'm not talking the fantastic, awesome stuff that IDW are currently putting out. I'm talking totally, completely the Generation 1 cartoon. So we're not bringing in the Marvel comics, we're not bringing in the Dreamwave. Was he in the Dreamwave? I can't remember. Nothing like that. This is purely based on the Generation 1 comics. And Rodimus gets an awful lot of hate. And I do not understand why. You know, I mean, why do people hate him so much? Is it because he was not Optimus Prime? Is it because, you know, he had an actual personality? One of the things that really gets me about the 80s cartoon, and despite the fact that the G1ers will laud it up as this utopia of animated gloriousness, if you take off the rose-tinted glasses, there are an awful lot of flaws in that cartoon. From its animation, to its scripting, to its sometimes terrible dialogue, you know, it's not a brilliant, fantastic, amazing cartoon that some elements of the fan base hold it up to be. And I realise I'm going to get some slack from this, and frankly, I don't give a fuck. Because opinions are like arseholes. Everybody's got one, and I've got a loud voice. But, so, let's just take the fact, you know, one of the biggest arguments about Rodimus Prime in that he's not Optimus Prime. Well, let's look at Optimus Prime. Optimus Prime, episode 1, he comes down as this confident, kick-ass, archetypal, great American hero! All he needs to be Hulk fucking Hogan is a handlebar moustache! And he's the exact same in the first episode as he is in the last one, as he is in the movie. He is the noble, great, self-sacrificing, in and all for everything, defending the Autobot cure, sake of humanity, hero. He doesn't change. He doesn't get any kind of character development. He doesn't have anything apart from any kind of arcs that build him up to anything. He's just a great... Now, as children, that's fine. We don't, you know, as an 8-year-old, you don't give a shit about character development or animation errors or this or that. But the G1ers aren't kids anymore. They're adults. And they laud Optimus Prime up as... you know, this great, wonderful, all-American hero, which in all fairness, he is. But at least in the comics, they point out his flaws. You know, Optimus Prime has no flaws. He has nothing but redeeming features. He is the perfect soldier. He's the perfect leader. He has nothing. He is a fantasy. Okay, and I know I'm talking about a cartoon about a giant sentinel sentient robot. But there's nothing there that changes from day one. From day one, he is the archetypal villain who goes head-to-head with Megatron. In the 86 movie, he's the archetypal hero who goes head-to-head with Megatron. Even when he's resurrected, because let's face it, there was such a big blowout they had no frigging choice, when he's resurrected, he doesn't come back any different. He's the exact frigging same. The great archetypal hero who goes head-to-head with Galvatron. For all of one episode. And then kind of gets sidelined in the Rebirth. Yeah, he does actually, doesn't he? Yeah, I've just realised that. My God! After 20 years of watching this cartoon, I've only just realised... 20 years? More like 30 years. Now I'm showing my age. I wasn't watching it when I was 3. But anyway, yeah, that's a really good... I only just realised, in the Rebirth, he was completely sidelined. Anyway, never mind, carry on. Point of the matter is, now, so, and it's not just Optimus that we can focus this on. If you look at the vast majority of any of the Transformers in the 86, in the 84 to 86 cartoon, they don't change. There is nothing that says that they are affected by their situation by the fact that, I mean, these guys have been fighting a war for millions of years, despite in the first episode they say that we're not fighters like they are, Prime. You know, they're all the same. You know, none of them change. I mean, okay, some of them show sparks, like Mirage and his longing for Cybertron, but that's not an arc that gets developed. That's not a personality trait that gets resolved. It just says, I still get a power surge when I think about home. And that's it. It's probably one of the few times where they actually show something that because they bring it up very early on that Mirage wants to go home and they think he's all left him and he's on the robot. And then it's not until, I think it's Desertion of the Dinobots where they go back to Cybertron? Where he actually again represses his urge to go back to Cybertron. But in between that, whenever we see him, there's nothing. Prowl is another one. He's pretty much the exact same. And then you can actually argue that aside from maybe half a dozen, none of them have anything resembling a personality. They're all just generic tropes. Well, they're not even tropes, they're just there. I mean, I can still name off all the characters from the Generation 1 cartoon, but look at it, think about it honestly. Which one of them actually has individual personalities outside of, say, Optimus Prime, Bumblebee, Ironhide, Jazz? Jazz is another one. Jazz is very much a fan favourite. He has no character development at all in the cartoon. Bumblebee, who, you know, is one of the he's one of the kids' favourites, who probably has more screen time apart from other than Optimus Prime than any other of the Autobots. No character development. Nothing's done with him. He's the exact same he is at the start, which is the plucky little go ahead and go get him dude kind of guy, as he is, well, feck, when he becomes Goldbug. Starscream is a conniving, sneaky, cowardly little upstart. In the very first episode, that's established. In the 86 movie, he does that. When he comes back as a ghost, in 2 different series, he's the sneaky coward. There is nothing, these guys don't get anything. And this brings me on, the point that I'm trying to drive home is you get to Rodimus. Rodimus starts out as Hot Rod. This we know. Obviously, we've all seen the 86 movie. And he goes from being a cocky, arrogant teenager who just basically wants to have fun, who makes a monumental fuck-up and gets in the way and gets Optimus Prime killed, and actually shows something resembling emotion in the form that he feels horrendously guilty for what he's done. And he goes from doing this to, before he gets the Matrix, he is showing leadership qualities. He is developing as a character. Even before he's got the Matrix, he is banding together the other Autobots. He is bringing them together and he is taking the fight to Unicron. He's actually showing a character development. He's showing that he's learning from his experiences. And then he becomes Rodimus. And everyone's suddenly going, well, he's weak and he's useless and he doesn't have self-confidence. So bleeding what? Right, Optimus Prime. Great paragon of virtue, wondrous leader of the Autobots, fought a war for 4 million years, got roughly left about 30 Autobots, none of whom were fighters, came to Earth, got lucky, ended the war, then got killed. As you will. And then had to be brought back. But, as you will. Rodimus. We know that the Cybertronian Wars has ended, you know, we get the great big speech at the end of the first film. Let this mark an end to the Cybertronian Wars as we march forward into a new age, blah, 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 blah. We get that. What does Rodimus do? Does he sit on his laurels? No. He goes out and makes alliances and he settles disputes. He becomes a diplomat, something Optimus never did. All Optimus Prime ever did in the cartoons was battle the Decepticons. Battle the Decepticons. Battle the Decepticons. Rodimus is out, despite the fact that he knows the Decepticons are still out there. And he's out being a diplomat and solving disputes. And yes, he is flawed. He's a flawed character. Frankly, to me, that makes him more relatable. Because despite the fact that he is tormented by the fact that he's not Optimus Prime, that he can't fill Optimus's boots, he still goes out and does it anyway. Optimus Prime never shows any kind of these emotions, never shows any kind of these self-doubts. At any point, to my recollection, he just goes out and fights the good fight and wins and saves the day. And Optimus Prime, and even when Galvatron Galvatron in the Ultimate Weapon, even when Galvatron plays on his insecurity, Rodimus not only fights through it, but learns from it. And he comes back, and he stands on his own 2 feet. And his story arc actually is a story arc. He goes from being, yes, you could argue in some regards, a weak leader, to becoming a strong, capable leader of the Autobots and of the galaxy at large. And Season 3 might be regarded as one of the weakest series, but it has some of the best episodes. Okay, it's got the worst Carnage in C minor. It has the worst episodes as well, but it has some of the best. It has Call of the Primitives in there. I absolutely love Grimlock's new brain when we get the Technobots. Oh, sorry, hang on. A little bit of character development that we did get in Season 2 that lasted for 3 whole episodes was when the aerial bots come into it. I think we should take over. Yes, we should run this. Hang on a second. Decepticons are baddies in War Dawn, which was a great episode. No, we're goodies again. Okay, that character development and that conflict resolution took all of 40 minutes. Okay, I'm being pedantic there in order to back up my own argument. But there we go. The point does stand is that little bit of character development comes in, but then he's gone again. Rodimus' self-doubt is a constant throughout Series 3 of Transformers, and it culminates in episodes like The Ultimate Weapon. It culminates in things like Grimlock's New Brain, where Rodimus again realises that he is hopelessly outmatched. And it comes to a circle in The Burden Hardest to Bear. The Burden Hardest to Bear is one of my favourite episodes. And it features Rodimus Prime, where Rodimus finally has his arc come full circle. Where his confidence as Hot Rod was arrogance, yes, but he was still confident, he was still strong, and he was still able to lead. In The Burden Hardest to Bear, he is able to accept who he is, and he is able to, at least some degree, step out of the big red guy's shadow. And then, of course, the fucking return of Optimus Prime happens, and the story behind it might as well have been a moot point. But that's the point. But so many people hate on Rodimus. But he has got so many redeemable qualities. You know, he is compassionate. He's a diplomat. And to go from being a cocky, arrogant teenager to getting the wisdom of the Matrix, he has Optimus Prime's nobility, and he has it in spades. And unlike Optimus Prime, who always seems to be so sure of himself, Rodimus doubts himself. He doubts that he can lead, but he still goes out and leads anyway. Excuse me, it's very cold in this house at the moment. The fire's blazing away nicely. I bet you there's going to be more I can think to add to this, but for now, that's it. That's all I can think of to say on the hopes of Rodimus. I realise that any G1ers watching this are probably going to be, grabbing their pitchforks, but as I said, I don't give a fuck. But for now, this is Silverball, wishing you all a happy 2015. Signing off, saying au revoir, adios, auf Wiedersehen.